浙江公务员降薪25%，江苏公务员降薪15%，福建公务员也降薪20%。就连北上广深这些一线城市也没能扛住压力，宣布体制内集体降薪。
网传上海公务员雪崩式降薪，上海主任级公务员月薪从24万降至15万，骤降9万元；初级以上公务员年薪35万降至20万，骤降了15万。财政税收不是其他地区可以比拟的。如果降薪真是这么厉害，几乎可以宣告通缩会。
Amid China's recession, local governments across the country have been amassing significant debt. Since last year, there have been ongoing reports of salary cuts for civil servants in various regions. Now, local government debt has gotten out of control, with many even defaulting on their obligations. Starting from August 18th, the Chinese Communist Party's official media, Caixin, ran a series of cover stories on how to manage local debt. Based on information from various official sources, the reports claim that the CCP government is preparing to issue special refinancing bonds worth 1.5 trillion yuan in the second half of the year for 12 provinces in debt, including Tianjin, Guizhou, Yunnan, Shaanxi, and Chongqing. The report highlighted that one southwestern province, which was allocated a substantial portion of the refinancing bonds, might need to cut its civil service staff by 20% as a trade-off. This implies that in addition to salary cuts, there will now be direct layoffs for civil servants. When this news broke, it triggered extensive public discussion. The southwestern provinces refer to Yunnan, Guizhou, and Sichuan. Based on previous reports, many netizens speculated that it could be the public employees in Yunnan or Guizhou who will lose their steady jobs, which they call their iron rice bowls. In its financial report from May 2022, Guizhou's capital, Guiyang, acknowledged its challenging debt situation. Meanwhile, several counties in Yunnan announced in April that they were struggling with debt management. In May, there were rumors that the provincial capital, Kunming, had a looming debt of 20 billion yuan due within the next 6 months. Both city and provincial governments stated their inability to manage the situation, leading to local managers going to Shanghai, China's financial capital, in an attempt to secure loans. After discussions with various local government officials, Chinese media Caixin found that many local treasuries are struggling, borrowing money to pay civil servant salaries, using hospitals as collateral for loans, or even delaying salary payments. In fact, since 2021, news broke of salary reductions for civil servants, especially in economically developed coastal provinces like Jiangsu, Zhejiang, Guangdong, and Fujian. In February of this year, a video surfaced online showing employees of the Harbin branch of China Post protesting unpaid wages, holding banners accusing the company of deliberate salary cuts. China Post is a state-owned enterprise run by the Ministry of Finance on behalf of the State Council. As early as June 2022, a video spread online showing teachers in Yantai, Shandong Province, protesting in front of a school. According to these teachers, not only have the bonuses for the past 2 years not been paid, but they have also been asked to return the income of 50,000 to 100,000 yuan that were already paid. In March 2022, Shenzhen, known for offering high salaries to attract graduates from top institutions, also reported salary cuts. Many teachers posted online that their year-end bonuses would be reduced by 60%, with some seeing their total yearly salaries drop to 80,000 to 100,000 yuan, or approximately $13,750. According to Voice of America, Mr. Chen, a 38-year-old civil servant from Nantong, Jiangsu, also faced pay cuts starting last year. His monthly salary was over 10,000 yuan, with a 13th month bonus and a year-end bonus. But now, his bonuses and the extra month salary. Furthermore, Mr. Chen's annual public holiday pay has also been cut. Employees in his department get a 15-day annual leave, which, if unused, is compensated in cash. Previously, when Mr. Chen didn't take leaves, he could receive up to nearly 20,000 yuan. Now he gets just over 8,000 to 9,000 yuan, a reduction of about 50%. Another civil servant from Shijiazhuang, Hebei, mentioned that his salary is on the verge of being unpaid. In recent years, his department had to borrow money for salaries, and now there's nothing left to borrow, leading to some colleagues resigning. The widespread salary cuts and even payment reversals for Chinese civil servants underscore the enormous financial challenges local governments are facing. China's local debt comprises general municipal bonds, special purpose bonds, and a variety of so-called hidden debts, like urban investment bonds. Hidden debts refer to local governments borrowing debts directly or under promises, repaying with fiscal funds and providing guarantees in violation of law, beyond the statutory government debt limit. According to Wang Tao, chief economist and head of Asia Economic Research at UBS, by the end of 2022, local governments had accumulated 42.7 trillion yuan in hidden debt, accounting for about 73% of all local financing platform debt. The remaining 27% was commercial enterprise debt. However, an estimate by China Caixin Credit Rating Group suggests that by the end of 2022, the scale of local government hidden debt ranged from 52 to 58 trillion yuan. The International Monetary Fund further projects that this year, Chinese local governments might be saddled with debts totaling up to 66 trillion yuan. The pressure of local government debt has been a long-standing issue. Recent comprehensive debt relief plans have been devised in response to the economic impacts of the 3-year pandemic, especially due to the significant decrease in revenue from land transfers. There was a decline of over 20% year-on-year for the entirety of 2022 and the first half of 2023. This caused a significant financial gap for local governments. The looming reality is that many local governments are struggling to handle debt repayment pressures. An insider from a major bank shared that this year, some regions can't even afford to pay the interest on their loans. Since the onset of the pandemic, repayments in certain areas have been irregular. The situation notably worsened in the second half of the previous year, with certain provinces in the southwest, northeast, and areas like Tianjin being badly hit. He said, "Now we are borrowing just to pay interest. Principal repayment seems improbable." UBS's banking research team estimates that 81% of local financing platforms don't generate enough operational cash flow to cover their interest. The report cited Xu Yan, Director General and Head of Credit Research at China International Capital Corporation Limited, who mentioned that since 2018, due to short-term financing and poor internal cash flow, the liquidity of urban investment enterprises has been steadily weakening. After March and April, August and September will see the next peak in bond maturities for the year. Urban investment bonds are a financing method used by Chinese local governments. Typically, investment companies use these bonds to fund real estate projects or infrastructure developments. Huaan Securities' projections for publicly issued urban investment bonds indicates that by the end of 2013, about 2.6 trillion yuan in bonds from 3,427 urban investment entities will mature, meaning the local governments will have to repay the lenders the face value of the bond. Most of these maturities are clustered in August, around 555.4 billion yuan, and September, approximately 527.7 billion yuan. The total maturity pressure for 2024 is projected to be about 5.4 trillion yuan. By the end of 2024, the accumulated remaining maturity pressure is expected to be about 8 trillion yuan. Regionally, as of this year, the top 5 provinces facing the highest maturity amounts are Jiangsu, Zhejiang, Shandong, Tianjin, and Sichuan. What's worrying is that most urban investment bonds are being rolled over with new debt. This year, there has been a noticeable increase in entities issuing new bonds primarily to repay existing debts. In the sample bonds from Guizhou, Jiangsu, and Ningxia, the proportion dedicated to refinancing previous debts ranked the highest at 90%, 77%, and 77% respectively. Other regions where the proportion surpassed 70% included Tianjin, Chongqing, Hubei, and Yunnan. So, can the special 1.5 trillion yuan refinancing bonds introduced by the Chinese Communist Party immediately alleviate the local debt issue? According to Radio Free Asia, Chinese financial experts describe the bond issuance as a drop in the ocean. It has even led to increasing skepticism about the Chinese government's capability to regulate local debt risks. Given that local governments have claimed that the central government remains financially robust and that purchasing Chinese bonds is still safe, why then have they only allocated less than 2 billion yuan for market relief? There is still a clear logical inconsistency. Analysts note that since the last century, local governments have relied on land sales to compensate for funds appropriated by the central government. However, with land resources being finite, local governments began issuing debts. The current financial turmoil involving major property developers like Evergrande and Country Garden is closely tied to the burgeoning local debt crisis. If authorities fail to implement effective economic revitalization strategies, this snowball of debt is only going to grow larger. Once the issuance of debt begins, it becomes an avalanche where the debt gap keeps expanding. Local governments are then left with the strategy of refinancing older debts with new ones. Evidently, the Chinese government does not seem to have any genuine intention to reverse the local government's debt crisis at its root, but rather appears to indulge in limitless debt issuance. There hasn't been a significant allocation of real money to local governments, meaning no actual funds have been transferred from the central treasury to local entities. For bonds to be issued, there must be buyers. Lin Heli, a senior researcher at the Jamestown Foundation, predicts that state-owned enterprises will be forced to become the buyers, with Hong Kong possibly being a primary target for the central government's debt-filling initiative. Lin Heli stated that issuing bonds is one of the ways for the central government to absorb foreign exchange. Although the surplus of the Hong Kong government is dwindling rapidly, it still has sizable reserves to meet Beijing's demands. If Beijing issues a strict order for Hong Kong's monetary authority or other government agencies to purchase the bonds issued by the mainland or to extract funds from Hong Kong, local officials will likely have no choice but to comply. In fact, China's Ministry of Finance has doubled its bond issuance in Hong Kong this year to 30 billion yuan, with strong support from the Hong Kong government. The China Securities Regulatory Commission also plans to introduce national bond futures in Hong Kong, along with related A-share index options. The Legislative Council amended regulations last year, increasing the proportion of mandatory provident fund (MPF) investments in Chinese national bonds to 30%. Given that the current total assets of the MPF exceed 1 trillion Hong Kong dollars, this translates to at least 330 billion Hong Kong dollars, about 300 billion RMB. Lin Heli believes that the MPF might also be targeted by the Chinese Communist Party. Moreover, the Hainan provincial government's finance department has announced plans to continue issuing offshore local bonds in Hong Kong this year, expanding the underwriting consortium from 17 members last year to 22 this year. Last October, Hainan completed the issuance of 5 billion yuan in offshore local bonds in Hong Kong, which included 2-year marine works bonds and 3- and 5-year sustainable development bonds, making the first overseas issuance of provincial government bonds from the mainland. A recent analysis by the Wall Street Journal suggests that with Chinese housing debt, overextended local governments, weakened private investment, stagnant exports, deteriorating Sino-Western relations, and waning foreign investments and trade, China's 40-year economic boom may have come to an end.